Välkommen allesammans. You all know it, regarded by most people as the greatest and most famous battle of all time, when King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans went up against an army of 1,000,000 invading Persians almost 2,500 years ago, the Battle of Thermopylae. You all know the story. This is not a historical video, so I don't want to hear any of the history nerds crying about the tiny details in the comments. Yes, I know, the Persian army wasn't a full 1,000,000 people. Yes, I know, the 300 Spartans were accompanied by about 7,000 other Greek warriors. If you wanna all get butthurt over some tiny details, go watch another historical video on this event. Even better, you can read the primary sources, which are all listed here. I've read them all, I promise you. But this video is something else. This video goes over the spiritual elements of the battle and background that you may not have heard of in the general history books, while I show you all this amazing battle site where King Leonidas and those other legends walked these exact steps 2,500 years ago. So, why do I care about this? This channel does videos on Viking history and the religion. Well, it's because this battle and time period have a very special place in my heart, and first of all, I lived in Greece for some time and have a great respect for the modern and ancient culture. But second, it's my favorite time in history. The favorite time in history of mine is not actually the Viking Age, but the Bronze Age, specifically the Nordic Bronze Age, which officially ended right around this time, the Battle of Thermopylae, around 500 BC. I did a series here about why the Nordic Bronze Age was my favorite time in history and how closely it was actually related to Greek culture at the time. You can check those out in the links below. But the number one thing that I love most about this age is that all the evidence points to a strong and healthy society with the best war spirit in history, but it wasn't a particularly violent time. These cultures had the most elite and well-trained warriors, but they didn't abuse their power by conquering others or fighting amongst their own people. No, this war spirit in the Bronze Age was reserved for invaders who came in and wanted to threaten our way of life and healthy societies. This was true of Bronze Age Scandinavia, and most of all, Bronze Age Sparta. Even though the Battle of Thermopylae, the Greeks were in the Iron Age by this time officially, but their warrior culture was still very much so of a peak Bronze Age civilization. See my videos I did on the Bronze Age war spirit for a more in-depth explanation on the analysis and archaeological finds, but back to the Battle of Thermopylae. The first spiritual aspect to this was that the Persians were invading Greece during the time of the Carneia, the most sacred of all Spartan festivals. It was a week-long festival, roughly in our modern month of August, which is exactly when I was in Greece here, by the way. And during the Carneia, military action was strictly forbidden in Sparta. Similar to Yule in the Viking Age, actually, the 3 days around Yule, it was forbidden to do any fighting. So a deeply spiritual culture that is very strict on their laws and don't have anything to do with fighting on this holy festival. So the movie 300 actually got that part right. What they didn't get right is a couple other things. It wasn't that the ephors, which were the kind of board of magistrates in Sparta, it wasn't that they didn't want to fight. They wanted to fight. They were going to fight. They just knew that they couldn't do it during the Carneia, but they knew it was urgent enough, so they needed to do something. So what they did was send Leonidas to Thermopylae during the Carneia with his 300 men, only in order to gather forces from the rest of Greece and block off the pass to delay the Persians, and then the full Spartan army had every intention of meeting them the next week when the Carneia was over. That was the plan. This brings us to our next spiritual aspect, Delphi, where I'm at right here. It was the central temple of the whole ancient Greek world, and where the mighty Ceres, in a state of trance, believed to be possessed by the god Apollo, spoke and gave her prophecies and wisdom. The Spartans earlier in the year had consulted the Delphic oracle, and she spoke these words to the Spartans. It says here, Basically, in other words, that if the Spartans were to go to battle at this time during the Carneia, the prophecy was that they would die along with the descendants of Heracles, which was King Leonidas. So knowing this, Leonidas took the 300 men who had all born sons already to, keep the population afloat. They set out to Thermopylae and gathered as many warriors as they could from neighboring Greek city-states as they could along the way. Numbers estimate about 7,000 to 8,000 total, and every one of them knew that their fate was imminent. This is the first part of the story that really gets me going and should bring some inspiration to us modern people. Could you imagine what would happen if this same situation happened today in the West? Leonidas would show up to your village asking for your help to defend our homeland from the Persians. Modern humans would just argue amongst themselves and try and weasel their way out of it. Half of them would say, "Oh, I would love to help you, Leonidas, but I have work tomorrow and I really can't get fired from my job." Oh, Leonidas, today it isn't good for me. My in-laws are coming to visit this weekend and I need to be here to get ready or my wife will be in a bad mood. Half of the society would say that. And the other half of society wouldn't even try to make excuses. They would just call Leonidas racist because he wanted to defend their homelands. That's the reality of Western culture today. But ancient humans didn't even think twice about this. What's that, Leonidas? You're showing fight to defend our loved ones and homeland? Little chance of success? Certainty of death? Let's go! Wife, my love, get me my spear and helmet, and they would have just gone without even any second thought. That's the kind of inspiration I think we all need today. So then they marched all the way to Thermopylae. Back then it would have taken a few days, but lucky for us, I rented a car and drove there in just less than an hour from Delphi to Thermopylae, which in ancient Greek means hot gates, which got its name from the hot springs that used to be there. The next spiritual element is the natural springs in ancient pagan cultures were always believed to be sacred areas. Just like here at Delphi, and many other Greek temples are near a natural spring, as with Norse temples and many other places around Europe. The Battle of Thermopylae took place near a massive area of springs and marshes, and you can feel the sacredness of this place when you arrive. The last inspirational moment of the story, when the Spartans and Greeks lined up for battle, outnumbered by hundreds of thousands, the Persians ordered the Greeks to lay down your weapons, to which Leonidas replied with these famous iconic words, "Molon labe," come and take them. You want them? You want to enforce tyranny? No, we are not going to negotiate and come to a compromise or a treaty. You want to enslave our loved ones? You're going to have to kill us first. Come take it. One of my favorite quotes in history, and it's actually engraved here on the monument of Leonidas at this very site. This is it, we're here. This is the Battle of Thermopylae, where Leonidas and the 300 Spartans would have fought off the Persians. You guys around a little bit, but this would have been the hill. This was like a kind of standing natural hill where they could have funneled any soldiers in. And I guess the Spartans would have been camping out somewhere in this area here. But the biggest difference you're all going to notice is over here, in the Bronze Age, the water levels were much higher than they are today. And it doesn't look like that much of a difference. I mean, the water is probably at least a mile or two out there. That's where the ocean starts. But back in the Bronze Age, it would have been all the way here, probably up to where you see that statue. So the 300 Spartans would have funneled the Persians into this area right here. And yeah, whoop some asses for a few days. We'll go down there and check out the memorial for Leonidas right now. So here we're standing pretty much right in the middle of where the fighting would be. Now, I've been to a lot of these places around the world, a lot of these old battles, a lot of these places where a lot of people died, and a lot of it feels like grim, eerie, like sad places. But being here, I don't get that feeling at all. It feels like glory. It feels like something legendary and great happened here. It doesn't feel like something evil. It doesn't feel like a horrible loss of many honorable lives, and a bad thing that happened here feels like glory, but that's just me. That's just the feeling that I have from, you know, experiencing and meditating at these kinds of places around the world. But that's just me. Let me know if you guys feel something else here. So finishing off the video, after the Persians eventually won the battle and left, the Greeks collected their dead and buried them all on this hill right here. So this isn't just an ancient battle site, but it's actually in a way a massive burial mound and a resting place for some of the most honored men in their history. After the battle, the Persian king Xerxes unfortunately took King Leonidas' body and desecrated it and took it with him. It wasn't until 40 years after the battle that the Spartans actually acquired Leonidas' bones again and returned them to Sparta, where he was buried with full honors, and funeral games were held every year in his memory. So very important part of the Greek religion that the greatest heroes were given their proper funeral customs and honored each year with some games. Final spiritual element we will talk about in this video, how Leonidas was a descendant of Heracles, otherwise known as Hercules, the mythological demigod son of Zeus. So in many cultures around the world, certain tribes or kings were believed to be descended from gods. In the Greek and Roman world, we commonly hear the name Hercules as an ancestor of great men, but even in the Norse and Germanic world, Tacitus wrote that certain Germanic tribes also believed that they descended from Hercules, or in the Germanic areas of the time they would have called him Thunderas, or maybe Tivas, which would be Thor or I don't know, let me know what you guys think. Were the gods really humans? If so, which gods were humans? Which kings are descended from them? That's all I have to do for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this sacred area and gave you some inspiration and ideas about ancient Greece. That's all for today. Vi ses nästa gång. The fig straight from the fig tree at the Battle of Thermopylae. We'll eat it.
The what is what?
Like what? The tree could be dirty. You never know. This is the fig we found at the Battle of Thermopylae. So there's gonna be some ancient power in this for sure. I really don't like figs though.
Oh, maybe I gave you the one I found on the street.
It's like herpes and dog shit. I'm gonna watch that down.